Welcome to CAM Radio, an Ahead of the Curve initiative by Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, bringing you every Friday the latest in legal and policy. Stay tuned. Enjoy listening.
I think a lot of the points on the BNSS have already been covered by the people who've gone before me. As an overview, this has been the law that has seen the most amount of change. So this, old wine in a new bottle, here they've actually changed a number of the parts. And part of it has been with the original objective that Mr. Shroff set out, which was this idea that there must be speedy trial, and that has to be one of the fundamental changes that we needed to see in our criminal justice system. So they have put in a number of timelines that have been introduced on how the police have to report to the magistrate. They have to write back to the complainant within 90 days on what has been the progress on the investigation. There are timelines on the magistrate on when do they need to frame charges, that's on when the judgment must come. Now all of these, how they will actually roll out will be a matter for us to see as and when the time goes on. But this will again become one more ground for maybe delay also in the system, because everybody will be like, now it's beyond this time, so therefore can you continue the prosecution, can you not? So we'd see how that sort of runs past. At the big level, and because we've titled this as a need to know summary, we're just sort of highlighting what are the key points that you should know about this. One is this construct of a mandatory preliminary inquiry. So the Supreme Court in Lalita Kumari had set out that, okay, in these 5 types of cases, because there was a lot of people coming and making complaints in these various categories, and it wasn't clear whether a cognizable offense was made out. They said if it falls into the category of a matrimonial dispute or attaining to corruption, then there was some subjectivity involved with the police officer to see whether this needed to proceed to the registration of an FIR. So there was a preliminary inquiry that was mandated by the Supreme Court for these types of cases. What the BNSS does is that they have made this a mandatory preliminary inquiry for all offences where the consequences are between 3 to 7 years of prison term. And the scope of inquiry has also changed. Earlier it was just, was this a well-drafted complaint where a cognizable offence can be made out from what has been said in the complaint? Whereas now it is that there has to be a prima facie case that is made out from the complaint for an FIR to be registered. And so, a number of times people will see that there is a lot of subjectivity that has been brought in with the police on whether they would like to, whether they should put in an FIR or not. The preliminary inquiry period was also changed in terms of timelines. Now it's gone to 14 days. Earlier it was a 7-day timeline when they had to make a decision to register or not to register. The next big change from a need to know standpoint is the fact of this zero FIR. So what we've done is we've now taken away all territorial limits of the police stations, and you could go to the police. So there is actually the first FIR, zero FIR, has been registered in Bangalore for a laptop theft in Hyderabad. So you would have had to go back to the police station in Hyderabad and lodge the complaint there, but that's sort of been moved out in the way this is functioning. And I think a lot of the commentary that has come in has been raising concern about this particular provision, because there is a heavy chance for frivolous complaints, for people to go what we call forum shopping, but this will be like a police station shopping, which is the police station where somebody who will then put in an FIR, because once an FIR is lodged, then the entire criminal justice system runs, and it's very difficult to get an FIR closed. So it is something that has caused a lot of concern from the practitioner standpoint on where do you go from there. And Mr. Shroff mentioned that a lot of companies do get harassed because it's very easy to put out a zero FIR against the entire board of directors in Karkaduma somewhere, and that's the end of how all of us perceive it. The second part is also important. The law prescribes that this FIR has to eventually be transferred to the police station where the crime has actually been committed, and the trial will happen in that jurisdiction. But they haven't set out the entire process on when exactly it must be transferred, who will do the investigation, how long can you run the investigation, can you make an arrest, can you not make an arrest, which high court will have the jurisdiction to quash such an FIR. All of that has been left to maybe judge-made law, which will actually prevail after we see this run across. Third construct is this construct on a complaint case. Historically, you could go to the magistrate and you could say, here I have a complaint against somebody. This is a private complaint where a person goes to the magistrate and says, here I have a complaint, please take cognizance of this offense. And historically, it was only between the complainant and the magistrate as to whether you were able to make out the ingredients of a cognizable case or not. That's fundamentally changed because now they've put in rights of the accused, and the accused can be heard before cognizance as well. So that in a way is a step towards improving the realms of the criminal justice system. Kapil touched upon the construct of attachment of property. See, historically, criminal courts could attach property, but only because you wanted to compel the accused to actually join the process. I mean, there was an objective to it. You want a recovery court as what we can use now. But now what the scope has substantially increased. You've sort of made it to be that the criminal courts can become a recovery court, because you can say, oh, this property, oh, he has cheated me and he has taken this property because of a criminal act where I am the complainant, so please attach this property. And that becomes the basis of all the future references in this. And then, the scope of how we were thinking that we'll reduce the burden on the criminal justice system to ease it and speedy trial. But now you'll sort of see all the commercial disputes. And in fact, even as earlier even as of today, it will happen. The police station will then make an application to the magistrate. But even today, as commercial lawyers, I was, when the client asked me even on a call earlier today, so what are my different options, we had to present this option, that this is an option for you to take it up with the police for attachment of that property, because that is a ground that you can consider, and that's where the law stands today. The other very controversial aspect is on custody. Because what they've essentially done was, historically it was a block of 15 days that the police would have custody, but now sort of moved out to say you can take it in tranches. So essentially the police can say, oh, I want police custody for 3 days right now, so you get it for 3 days and then you go back to judicial custody. And this can run for a period of 40 days or 60 days. Historically, after the 15 days, you could go apply for bail and, subject to the conditionalities that there were, you would be able to get bail. But that's not the case anymore, because definitely for that 40 days, the police will say, we may still need him for police custody, we have some custodial interrogation that we need to do, etc., etc. So you can forget about bail for the entire period of that 40 days or 60 days, depending on the nature of the crime. Bail is an interesting space. The provisions on anticipatory bail, earlier there was some guidance on, what are the criteria you need to meet to be able to get anticipatory bail. All those criteria have gone. Now, one way to look at it is, we've empowered the courts to grant anticipatory bail in all cases that they ought to. Their hands are not tied by specific grounds, etc. But the reverse is also possible, that now it's going to be far less predictable to anticipate that you will be able to actually get the anticipatory bail that you paid for. There's also bail for under trial prisoners if they've already completed 1/3 or half, depending upon first time or you've been in jail multiple periods of time. You'll be able to apply for bail just because of the lapse of the amount of time that you've already spent in jail as an under trial, pending the final outcome of the case, of course. Now, one of the things, and a lot has already been said about the technological adaptations, the implications of deep fakes in documents, etc., where we're going to see a huge issue coming up in the evidentiary side, and Ankush is going to talk about it. But the seeds of the technological adaptations have been put into the BNSS, because that has now become part of the criminal procedure process on how trials will be run, etc. And then, of course, the secondary aspects, which Ankush will cover on the evidentiary side, is matters that need to be considered. Now, what has not changed? A lot has not changed. In fact, one of the comments is that while you've changed a lot of the front end of the provisions, you've not changed the corresponding provisions in the back end. And so there is going to be this dichotomy of what is going to be the actual process that we'll have to follow, because there are actual errors, and those will have to get, again, pulled out either through legislative amendments or through judge-made law. But I think the one that I highlight specifically is the inherent power of the High Court to quash. I think as with this clientele, that is one of the first things that we're always studying, to see if there is a way to quash frivolous complaints and what is the scope of the powers, and that is not sort of moved away.